Hello. And this is welcome to intuitive clay. Sorry about that. So, hello, welcome to intuitive clay. I can talk. Welcome to Intuitive Clarifications with Natasha. I just had a Mercury in retrograde moment, and I apologize for being a little bit late here, but I just want you to know that it's going to be one of those things. So, um, it's like it's one of those moments where it's like, when you have Mercury in retrograde moments, it's you got to ride with it. And I was just getting a little bit about things. So a little story about this Mercury in retrograde moment I had was is that, you know, my on my computer, I deleted my hi Veronica. I deleted my uh, Bluetooth icon. So I could not load up my picture for this show, right? So when doing it on my phone, it actually did two shows that I was going to be on YouTube, right? Well, I started it on my laptop. So by the time I got done, I had four posts about doing this show. So then I got on today thinking, okay, things are good because I got it down to one, right? I thought it was going to be deleted and everything like that. Go to log on and it said on YouTube, it's been deleted. So it wouldn't let me go on. So I had to do a whole new post about this. So with that if there's more than one post on this, I will go back through and edit it after the fact. I should have just left them, right? Just left them. So if you're having Mercury in retrograde moments, what am I doing? I'm laughing, right? I'm laughing. So today's show is going to be about changes in the vulnerability that you need to have or that it brings up, right? And it's kind of funny because it's one of those things that as we go forward and in the energies that we're in, we're going to be coming into a lot of these types of changes. And even this Mercury in retrograde moment I was having is basically a change, right? It's basically a change. And all we can really do is ride our way through it. And, I'm so sorry that things have been happening. Things are going forward. And I'm so grateful that everybody's here, but oh my gosh, this Mercury in retrograde moment, it was just one of those funny things. I just had to laugh, because it started out yesterday. Couldn't do it on my laptop like I usually do. I had to do it on my phone. And then YouTube got 6 or 4, posts about this show. So here we're going to go through the YouTube, the moment where I am going to be here talking about change and vulnerability, because the fact that a lot of people do not understand. And if you're here to watch me, please bring in the comments. I love conversations about things, but please remember that this is a live show and I will not interact with any of the comments that aren't necessarily of the embetterment for the show. So with that, I just want to say that because I want to bring light and love to this planet. And remembering your truth is your truth. This is a moment where your truth is your truth. And I want you to at least see that as your truth is your truth. So with that, change is happening everywhere, right? Change is about life. I have like 2 friends that are going to want to move here soon, or they are moving. One just ended up is going to be moving at the end of this week. It was moved up a week for her. She's moving out of state, and another one is going to be moving back in the state. And those kinds of changes are something that we all know that vulnerability is a piece of it. But the thing is, though, we don't really realize the depth of vulnerability that change brings. And because a lot of change brings in grief, right? It brings in that story of grief. And I know that my one friend who is moving from Washington state to another state because she just has just time for her to cut the cords to this state. And it's one of those things. I'm not going to go into something private because that's her story, but I'm kind of negotiating this, that that we had this conversation, and she was surprised at how many people are grieving her leaving. and the way that they're communicating it. And a lot of them are going into fear, a lot of them going into anxiousness. And then that was putting it onto her. Well, she, in her way, has to become a little more vulnerable about saying to herself, boy, their energy is not aligning with my energy, right? Their energy is not aligning with my energy. And so with that when we're going into this dance and when we're going into this story and when we're going into this understanding about this change, right? That, it really brings up this piece of us that, wow, I didn't expect people to react the way that they're reacting. And we're not always in the moment where things can happen where it's for our betterment. And it's like, and like I told her, it's like, people when they're in fear, this vulnerable piece about things, when we're in this fear based thing, sometimes we have to have the tough love, I'm going to call it, that tough love, and say, my energy is my energy, and I do not want that negative energy to be on. Sorry, screen's going fuzzy. I'm having a really Mercury and retrograde moment. That idea of, the energy that brings into a room. And so sometimes when we're going through these changes, especially when we're moving or changing jobs and that kind of stuff, it's interesting the grief that happens for the people around us. If we're changing jobs, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to leave. I don't want the thing that, it's like, and I say that too. I have a coworker that might be moving position jobs, right? She might be moving to different school, and I'm like going, I'm gonna miss you, but I'm so excited for you, right? This friend that's moving out of state, it's like I told her yesterday when she visited, I said, I'm sorry that I manipulated wanting another hug from you, right? But I didn't want it to come out this way because she was coming to me to get that confidence to be able to say these things that she needs to say to these people about boundaries, right? Because there's this one person that's basically telling her some negative things because she's in such fear. And it's like, well, honey, you're going to have to stop taking texts from her. You're going to have to stop taking calls from her. It's not that I want you to not interact with this person because this person is close to her, but you have to know that when you're in the middle of a lot of chaos, many a times when we're in the middle of a chaos, we'll say, oh, I got a text, I got to check it out, instead of just walking forward through the chaos, right? Walking forward and checking that text later. And I know that I got hacked off of Facebook because I did something when I was tired instead of just saying, stop, wait, let me do this another time. And that's the lesson that I learned out of that is that, sometimes we just, when we're in the middle of something, we have to just keep walking forward. We can't stop and do something technology wise or that kind of thing, because it is the energy that brings to the room. And so if we have somebody who is bringing negative energy in, we need to have boundaries around it. It doesn't mean we need to be mean, but we need to have those boundaries of saying, I'll just get to that text in a little bit, because you can usually scroll down and see what the text is a little bit about, right? And so if it's not sounding like it's going to be something that's valid at that time, we can always get to it later and say, I'm sorry, I was in the middle of something when you text. I saw that you text, but I really had to finish what I started, right? And so, there's these things that are, I mean, that's a truth, right? So going into this, that vulnerable piece about knowing that what is better for me, what is that betterment for me, is that story of how to negotiate through that vulnerability. Is, sometimes we have to have tough love with ourselves about, that's not going to work for me, right? That's not going to work for me. I need to have another day, or that kind of stuff. So, going into this, that vulnerability is this piece that sometimes, when we're going through the change, I know for me, when I've been, it was moving and doing a lot of things that, sometimes I would just sit down and cry because I just need to express that emotion. I needed to not say what that emotion was going to be about. And, because sometimes emotions are just all over the place, right? There's no name, excuse me, there's no name for them. They're just part of this story of who we are and what we're doing. And, things are happening left and right and up and down or in and out that, it's like we have this change that's going majorly on in the government, right? And that change that's in our government, it's not comfortable for all of us. But I know for me, the vulnerable piece that it's bringing out for me is that I'm discerning what is my truth and what's not. Maybe I might get a little bit, taking up on, more money for gas, or food is a little more expensive, and that kind of stuff. But one thing I noticed, that it's like when I was on a trip and I didn't listen to the news at all, it was amazing how only the main things, like an earthquake or a volcano or something major happened, that it was like it filtered its way through, and the little politics of things didn't necessarily, all the distractions didn't get filtered through. And it was like I was a lot more calmer about things, right? And so it's not that we need to stop watching the news. It's not necessarily that we need to stop doing things. I mean, it was nice to know about the shutdown. It was nice to know about these other things. But in the sense that, just because I want to help those around me, but in the sense I didn't really need to negotiate it with a story, right? So coming into this, can I ask a question from those that are watching right now? Hi, Jess. Thank you for being here. How do you think that your changes has helped your? How do you feel like vulnerability has come into your life with the changes that you've come through? Because the fact that, I know for me that, oh my gosh, the change that has happened through my relationship with my husband. Ooh, ain't that a thing that people don't always think about, right? That our relationships change. I know a lot of people, are awakening into their spiritual calling, right? And I was watching a video earlier today about how this one guy was saying that, he feels like he has one foot in this world and one foot in the other world, right? And it's not that, I mean, that's the way that we all feel, as we have one foot in the other world. But I can tell you, though, the more that we can be the spiritual person we are through the life we're in, that's when we know that we are walking our spiritual path, is that we're not 2 feet in two worlds. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's hard to have conversations about the weather. We don't want to talk about the government, right? We don't want to talk about certain things, but sometimes, it's nice to not have, I mean, it's not easy to have some of these lower level conversations. And it's not that it's lower or higher, I'm not saying that, but it is, talking about the weather compared to talking about, I just had a download of da 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 da, and people just kind of going, really? What are you talking about? I need somebody sometimes to chew on some things with. And with these understandings, that sometimes we don't always feel like we have 2 feet, or we have one foot in one world and one foot in the other, because let's say parents don't always agree with what we're talking about, or siblings don't, the siblings, not necessarily just sisters, but siblings don't always agree, you know and or coworkers. I have to discern my way through the world around me. And it's not necessarily easy to negotiate through a lot of these shifts and changes that we're going through. And I know for me, the piece that with my spouse that I have, the more that he's walked into his own understanding and his knowing, and he has come into an amazing story about, seeing what he needs in his life. And it's not necessarily an unhealthy eye. It's a healthy eye. It's like, I really need to shut down and take a nap, right? Or I really need to do this other thing, or I need to, whatever it is. And it's me listening to it. And that vulnerable piece really has added in this grace that we have now for each other, that we haven't had before, because of the energies of the now, right? And so, Jesse, and Veronica, and anybody else that's here, it is a moment that we're in, this change of who we are. And I can tell you that vulnerability is one of the best tools we can have, because I can tell you, our spirituality growth Our spirituality growth gets deeper the more that we're vulnerable with ourselves. The more we know, oh, that's a trigger for me. I get why it's a trigger. Okay. So I'm going to work on that trigger so that I can be better for myself. Right. And that's what vulnerability does, is that we look inside and see, oh, that didn't feel very good, did it? Okay. So what can I do different about this? Or, those kinds of things. So, and the more that you know about yourself, and not pointing the finger outside of you, but pointing the finger inside. What is this why am I triggered about this? Why am I triggered about this change? Because change is something like, let's say if you're going to do errands and you're with somebody, and you tell the somebody you're going to go first to the hardware store, then you're going to go to the clothing store, then you're going to go to the first grocery store, and then you're going to go to the second grocery store, right? But you decide, wait a minute, it's better that I go to the clothing store before I go to the hardware store. Well, that's change. And somebody who's with you maybe be a OCD person, right? And that change doesn't happen very well or go easy, right? And so then that person is like, how why did you change your mind? Why? And that grief. And but yet I can tell you though that just like me with the show starting out so weird, that the more I was like, I felt myself getting panicky. And that's one thing that changed that happens, is that we get this kind of panic feeling going towards us, right? We get this panic feeling, but I can tell you that when we step into that panic, that's when the anxiety hits and all that kind of stuff. Well, for me, it's like, instead of getting panicky, I kind of try to just shift out of panic, because yeah, panic was happening, right? And I've done this where, it's like, am I going to be able to move by a certain time? Am I going to be able to survive my next job that I'm getting in? Am I going to, it's all these different things that are happening with the panicness, right? And the anxiety that comes along with panicness, that when we can kind of just take a deep breath and go, I'm going to breathe right now and trust the process. Right? I'm going to breathe and trust the process. And that's what I did, is I just copied and pasted into this next one and started the studio. And it's up because obviously I have people that are watching me right now. So going into this, that when we're going into change, it's about trusting that there's a part of us that knows what to do. And that part of us that knows what to do, guess what that is? That's about being vulnerable and trusting that part of us that knows what to do. We all have a part of us that knows what to do. That's our intuition. That's our story. That's our energy field, right? But if we don't necessarily negotiate a lot of that moment, that understanding, that availability, many a times we don't necessarily find out, oh, that's emotional for me. Okay. I get that that's emotional. Why is it emotional? Why am I struggling with this? Why am I, whatever the words are, right? And ask those questions, because when we can ask questions, why am I anxious right now? Why am I triggered right now? Why is this bothering me right now? Why am I feeling so, that many a times it's like, another video I was watching, this guy says, my mind wants me not to be here anymore. And I'm going to see how far, why that is. Because our minds like to, and our emotions like to sell us that we're going to feel a certain way about certain things, right? But the more that we interact with those emotions, the more that we interact with those mind thoughts, the more we interact with the who we are at that moment, the more we find out about ourselves. Because we are just thoughts. Our mind is just thoughts, right? But we don't always have to act on them. And that vulnerable piece is that piece that's going to bring us into a cleaner self, to bring in that cleaner understanding of ourself. And the more you know about yourself, the more spiritual you can be. Like I had a teacher who said, that the more The more you're grounded in yourself, that you know yourself, the better channel you can be. Because they come to you. We come together to each other, right? And it is about trusting that process. So as you go forward, that remembering that change is every minute of every day, right? Even breath. The breath is change out to the breath is change in. The breath is change out, the breath is change in. The difference is, changing from daytime to nighttime. So change is around us all the time. But there's some that are more impactful, and I call those um, life altering moments, right? Because like my girlfriend who's moving um, from uh, from Washington state to another state, that's a life altering moment. She's having to negotiate other relationships with people around her. She's having to tell people that you can come and visit, but we got to move it because it's my soul's calling, right? She feels like it's the soul's calling. And that's the thing is that she can always come back. They can always come back. No, their house might not be the same, or it might be coming up for sale again, and they can move back into the house that they moved out of. We don't know what the future's going to be, right? And that's a little bit of that anxiety. We don't know what the world's going to be yet. So going into this, that as we walk forward, ain't that a vulnerability? I don't know what the world's going to be yet. I'm going to do my better when I get there. Right? I'm going to be better when I get there. Just like for me, yesterday I had 4 posts on YouTube about this show, Mercury in retrograde, right? Because as I explained at the beginning of the show, I, did something with one of my apps and I couldn't change a picture over, and, life was just happening. Now, right? Now when I got on, it said I couldn't do the streaming because it was deleted, even though it was there, but it was not there. I don't know. I just know that I needed to copy and paste and start another show. So that vulnerable piece, now I can look back over and say, oh, you know what? I felt anxiety stepping in. I felt all these different things. And now I know, guess what? You knew what to do. That part of me that knew what to do was trusting it. And that's the thing is that vulnerable piece that I was having of understanding myself, now I can use that in other places. So when we learn more about ourselves, and that's what vulnerability is, right? That's learning more about you. It's learning more about your story. It's learning more about who we are during the journey. The more that we can honor that part of ourself, perfectly imperfect we're going to be, right? Perfectly imperfect, because the fact that we are not always perfect about every emotion. We're not perfect about everything we're doing. I wasn't perfect through that trying to get the show started. No, but I was witnessing the emotions I had. I was witnessing the reality I had. I was witnessing a lot of things, and I wasn't taking it personal. It was a moment. It was a thing. And that's the thing that I've learned about my vulnerability is that I don't take things as personal as I used to, because the fact that they're just a moment, right? Life is just a moment. Change is just a moment, you know? And so as we go forward and into our negotiations of our reality, we're coming into some big shifts and changes. We're finishing up with the 9 year, because the 1 year has already started. 2026 energy is already coming in. And the year of the snake, the Chinese year of the snake, is starting to come out, and the year of the horse, which is the community, is starting to come in. And what are you thinking about the year of the horse, right? Community, working together, each one protects each other. Do we feel like that yet? No, not really. But that's that snake individuality, right? That snake individuality. Now we're coming from the year of the snake, where, we're shedding our skin, we're shedding off our old story. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't shed in next year, we're going to shed a lot. We're going to shed a lot of our old stories. We're going to shed a lot of our understandings because of the fact that the more we are emotional with our story, the more we're going to have hindrance towards moving forward. Now, I've had some years where it was like I tell people what my years were like, but I don't have the emotion attached to them like I did before. Now, I have a little bit of emotion, especially when I'm working through the grief of my parents. But the thing is, though, I don't have the emotions around that story. And so the more that you can be vulnerable with your emotions, the more that your emotions tell you, yeah, I'm going to pop up once in a while, but I don't have to be screaming and yelling at you anymore because you're going to be listening to me. So as you go into vulnerability, remembering that it's attached to so many understandings, so many insights. And 2026, we're going to have some big shifts and changes in the realities around us. This um this government shutdown is just a teller for how we're going to have to start negotiating our world, right? Our government's not going to back us up as we thought it was. Now it's a system that's well worked, right? It's well, not well worked. It is worked. So we might have a little bit of interaction of, gosh, I don't want that to go away. I don't want this to go away. I don't want that change to happen. Right. So like the people who do our flights and stuff, right? Maybe they don't need to be paid by the government anymore so that they get consistent payment. They actually get paid for what they do. That's a lot of responsibility. They're probably not getting paid what they're worth. It doesn't mean that I want payments to go up a whole bunch because then that just makes it harder to fly and that kind of stuff. But the thing is, though, put value where value is, right? The air control people, they hold a lot of responsibility. I'm not going to get into politics, but I'm just saying though that we're going to have to shift up something. We're going to have to change something because the realities are going to be changing around us. And we're going to have to hold on to what is our truth. And we can't step into fear about it. We can step into what do I need to do next? We need to step into that vulnerable piece of, oh, yeah, that's a little scary, but yet I can do it. Right? So change and vulnerability is hand to hand. It's a hand in hand. Change equals more to know about ourselves, which equals vulnerability. Because that's what vulnerability is. It's a learning of who we are. And I know for me, with me being as vulnerable as I am, now I use discernment with that. I'm not the same vulnerable with Peter on the street as I am with one of my good friends, right? I'm not going to have the same vulnerability because discerning, they're not worthy of knowing my secrets as someone who I truly trust, right? But I use discernment. I'm still love with whoever I am, right? I'm still that understanding of wherever I'm at. And as we go forward, that like last night I got this big aha of this story of who my soul is. And that's a big change for me. Not really, because I kind of knew who I was, but yeah, at the same time though, makes you go. But change is about learning who we are. Change is about our story. Change is about the wisdom that we are. Change is about gaining the information of how can I do my life better? Because I can tell you the changes we're going to go through next year, we've already been proven that we can get through it because we've gone through the changes that we've done in the past. COVID wasn't easy. And the years since COVID, holy crumadum, right? They're not easy either. And so the stripping down of these old stories, the more we hold emotions around that old story, the less vulnerable we can be. Because emotions want to override vulnerability. And that vulnerable piece, now for me, I'll say that I'm not my better right now. That's vulnerable, right? And hopefully my spouse will say, okay, I got you, babe. Because we're in the midst of this big change. We're in the midst of these big stories. We're in the midst of a lot of different stuff. And Change is not always easy. But I'm going to tell you, the more that we find out, why is this here to teach me? What am I going to do about this? I need to have boundaries. I need to do the calling of what's my next step. That's why on I've changed up about, that I'm here to bring in the to be able to be your next soul calling, right? That step, I'm helping you come into your next soul calling, because that's where I want to help, right? Is to be able to believe in yourself, right? So that you can have the courage for your next life walk. And we're in the midst of a journey. Life is about a journey, and a lot of us are struggling with our journey right now. But being willing to ask yourself, what can I do to help myself get through this? Well, I can tell you that for me, this weekend, what did I do? I stayed in bed an extra hour and a half, because I don't drink coffee. I stay in bed for a few minutes. So having that understanding that I needed to do that. Another thing that I did is that I finished some projects. Well, that helped me get my feet underneath me, so I wasn't feeling so scattered. So going into this, that when we are more vulnerable with ourselves, oh yeah, you know drinking that coffee doesn't make me feel very good. I'm going to be a little vulnerable here and say, as much as I like coffee, as much as I like this thing, it's a moment, and I'm typing stuff, but it's not coming through. Veronica, I'm sorry, that's part of this story. So I don't know what Mercury in retrograde is doing right now. I don't know what platform. I know that I don't know which one you're on, because I have, I think, two on YouTube of I'm gonna do this here. Get out of that. Come to my station. Go to YouTube lives. So yeah, it's a moment, and so I'm sorry if things aren't coming through. Yeah, all I can say is that Mercury's in retrograde right now, and just negotiate it. So thank you for being here. I did read that. Okay, I'm not sure if it's my phone. No, I bet you it's not. I bet you it's just, my link to this show was just so wonky. I'm just gonna say it was that. So as we are walking forward, I hope that this show is helping somebody to know that even though I've squirreled a lot, even though I've managed a lot, I kind of came into this show just a little bit discombobulated, but that's part of change, right? And how did I present myself? I was laughing at the beginning. I was just like, because that's all I can really do. I can be vulnerable with myself and know, "Hey, yeah, it was a moment of being human, that humanness." So all we can be is what we are in the moment. And please remember, if you can, put judgment off to the side. There's enough judgment out there in the world, and like my friend who's moving out of state here, she's having a lot of judgment put on her. And like I told her, put a blue put a put a protection bubble around her vehicle, put a bubble protection around her house, and know that she's going to be safe. And it's a moment, and all we can really try to be is who we are and what we're doing, because there's no right and wrong in this new future. Now there's better and there's not better. Like I've had a couple of people who was saying that, like Reese's peanut butter cups. I used to love Reese's peanut butter cups, but a lot of people said that there's things that are starting to taste more chemically. They're just tasting more chemical. And you know what? Because they are. We're just vibrating at a different vibration to feel and know that. Because things aren't made the same way that they used to be. We're starting to taste the reality around us. Ain't that a story? That just came down from a download. We're tasting our reality around us. If it doesn't taste good anymore, then don't eat it because your body's not going to vibrate it at it anymore. So, as we are and as we're going forward, remembering the vulnerability is a strength, it's not a weakness. I know for a lot of the gentlemen out there that are feeling like vulnerability is a weakness, I'm going to tell you, the more vulnerable that the man I love is becoming, the more empowered he is, and the more I'm falling more and more in love with him. And that's the thing is that a lot of people who are like the narcissistic tendencies or a lot of the I got to keep this persona up. Like Jim Carrey, what did he say? That he's done being the personas that he is. Even Jim Carrey is a persona, right? You know, but he's being vulnerable about it. That, it's like it's just about being who you are. And this is a time that it is really time for us to really believe in ourselves and find out who we really are. Sometimes we got to say, my extrovert is really tired and I need to go to my introvert. Ain't that a change, right? Because I know that a lot of our teachers that were doing conferences, right? Their extrovert was getting overworked, so their introvert needed a little bit of attention. We all are extrovert to a certain point, and we're all introverts to a certain point. But it's about finding the balance in the two. And if we can find the balance in the two, we know we're more empowered, which is vulnerability because it's a strength. It's more knowing ourselves. So it's coming up on 444. 444. Boy, numbers. Whew. I did a video on about numbers. Numbers have been very powerful. So 444. Mark your calendars. That's 444. I feel like it's time to channel. I'm going to channel. I have a meeting I need to get to afterwards, so I'm not going to be running a little bit after on this show. But who wants to come in? Mikkel wants to come in. Now, Mikkel is a star being. He is part of the Council of Councils. He's part of the higher council of the nations around us. And Mikkel wants to come in and he wants to support us through these changes that our planet is going on. Coming through? One of those things. It'll be taking me a second here. Now, remember, as I channel, I stay here a little bit and they come through. And as I walk through the channeling process, I will not read the comments. Thank you, everyone, and hi, Paula. That as we're coming into this, that your truth is your truth. But please, if you don't believe in channeling, remembering that just listen to the words, listen to the information that comes through. I channel now as I am, but this is just another energy field that likes to come in and has a different tone in my voice, another understanding that can be brought through, kind of like the way that Bashar is channeled or some of the other channelers out there. And depending on how long he channels, I will be pulling, and I might just pull one oracle card for the whole time because I do have to get to a meeting. Okay, guys, here I go. Hello, loved ones. You are coming from me from the stars above. I am Mikkel. I am one who is coming into fruition of this planet. We are coming closer and closer into your understandings so that you can see us. And oh boy, what a good conversation today she is having about change. Change and the vulnerability too. Did you think about us, the star beings, when you're thinking about change and the vulnerability? Isn't that a different way to think about that percent perception of the realities around us, right? That as you walk forward into the understandings of us coming in to know you and walk with you, do you think that you might have to be a little vulnerable walking side by me or one of my family members, one of your family members, I will add? Would that be a vulnerability? Yes, it would, because you would have to step into the unknown. You would have to step into a trust that you may not realize that you had. You may have to come into a surrender of the acceptance of the realities around you. You may need to just believe that no one will hurt you, and that is a vulnerability, right? So vulnerability can look a little different every time you see it. And it's part of your fuller story of who you are. The globe of Earth is round. Yes, well, almost round. It is round. And the moon is round, almost round, but it is round. The other planets are round, almost round, but they are round. That that roundness, as above as below, as a round on one side is a round on the other side. The thing we are going to go forward into is knowing that we are part of the community of you, and you are the community, part of the community of us already. And it's just recognizing that you are safe with us, who want to walk side by side, like you and the child may walk side by side, you and another adult may walk side by side. It is fear that's going to keep things separate, right? And that's why we are gently coming onto this planet, is for your fear, so we don't go into separation. We want to come in as a community of us so that you can be part of us and we can be a part of you. That's why there are different movies on this planet, to awaken this part of your imagination so that you can be into what you are. We are empowered to be with you. You are empowered to be with us. This next year's journey, you will see us more. Yes, more. You will see us more in the understanding. There are going to be some that still want to be separate, but others will say, yay, right? So if you can, believe in who you are and what you're doing. And remembering that as you walk into your understandings of belief, you will awaken the ones around you. And that's another piece of vulnerability, that is that the more that you show who you are, the more you walk with who you are, the more you will find the grace of vulnerability. Because the more you take down the cloak of invisibility, you take down the cloak of ego, you take down the cloak of misunderstandings, you take down the cloak of untruths, many times you will see this is truly who and what we are. We are fragmented moments of a human gaining our understanding of who we are. I, Mikhail, is wanting you to understand that your time on this planet is so unique at this time because of the growth that is happening and the amount of change that is being allowed to happen on this planet has not happened in many centuries. We, your family in the stars, as I will say now, are coming closer and closer. Your governments know of us and we know of them. We are working on believing in that story. We are working on those that are hindering the growth process. We are working on that too. Many of your government are not necessarily of this planet, and that's all I'm going to say. It is time for you to believe, though, that there is the greater knowings that are happening, and it's you aligning with that journey. Hatred, separation is working its way out as the awakenings come in. I want you to know that you are amazing and that the wisdom that is coming through will be a blessing. Let your planet open up to the understandings of the realities that are coming in and know that you are safe in that story. I, Mikkel, am here to be with you, to shine the light with this dear one's help, to be the greater love on this planet at this time. Whew. Thank you for being here with me. Whew. He came in strong. Well, I love you guys. Let's see. Let's get it. Who wants to come through? Who wants to come through? Who wants to come through? You know what? I'm going to pull a card here. Woo! Not doing a whole bunch. Ah! Ooh, yes. Okay, so the spider card came out again. So I'll read about the spider. The horse card came out, and forgiveness came. So I'm going to spend a few minutes to read about spider, because spider's message was pretty impactful the last time I read it. Oh, and then guess what was on the back side? So I talked about the snake, about the horse energy. Okay. So spiders, 16. Oh, no, 15. It's doing 1 and 5, 16. Nope, that's spider. The spider reminds you that you have within you the gift to create meaningful, purposeful work. Within you is an artist waiting to be expressed. Think of this. Do you write in a journal each day? Do you draw, paint, cook, or play music? Do you realize that everything you do on a daily basis is an act of co-creation with divine? The spider again signals that it is time to be aware of your responsibility for the creation in your life. Maybe you need to rethink an issue and apply your inner artist to find the solution. If you're unhappy with anything, ask yourself, how can I create a better, more productive, and loving experience for myself and others? Whether you see yourself as an artist or not, you always are co-creating with the divine. You are the architect of your own happiness and fulfillment with life as you are building. Don't just sit there. This is your time to create. So that was spider energy. So now I'm going to go into horse, because horse came next. So horse is the 26. Horse. Okay. Because the next year is the year of the horse with the Chinese New Year. The horse appears in your path to offer as assistance. If you are asking a question about your life, the horse says that you will indeed receive help from another to aid you in your quest. Too often, do you refuse help from others? Do you sometimes feel that Although you give to others, no one helps you. Well, you don't have to walk that whole way alone. You can get help. The horse appears to remind you that assistance is for the asking. Sometimes you need to be carried to get to your destination. Trust that when a horse appears, help is yours. Remember to ask for it and always remember to accept it when it's offered. So then forgiveness was upside down. So I'm going to do forgiveness, which is a 49. It's right before birth to rebirth card. Drawing this marker says that you must now search in your heart for another unresolved resentment, anger, disagreements between you and another. If you're still hurt or angry about another's behavior, or if there are circumstances in your life that you resent, this is the time for when it's critical to release the negative energy surrounding these situations. Resisting this will only impede your growth and draw more unwanted experiences to you. Resentment and anger are emotions that actually bind you and hook you to the events that cause the suffering, keeping them alive inside you, draining you of your life force and your inner light. Nothing good comes from hate, anger, or resentment. Peace can only come through forgiveness. When you release all that binds you to negativity, perhaps you need to forgive yourself for placing unrealistic expectations on your situation, resulting in self sabotaging perception by perfectionism. Look at the world and see how the lack of forgiveness feeds the turmoil and suffering around you. Forgiveness is the key to freedom and peace, and it starts with you. This marker requires you to practice forgiveness so that you can be the active part of spreading peace and beauty throughout the troubled world. And then we have the snake, right? Because the snake, so the horse was, or the spider was creative projects. The horse is accepting help from others, delegating authority, and the serpent, the snake, is about knowledge and healing. So 23, I'm going to do 23. 23, not 32. Dyslexia. 32. Okay, so the snake. Okay. The serpent message is one of healing and gaining knowledge. Whatever situation you're in right now is meant for the purpose of the serpent. Serpent also reminds you that knowledge is important. Perhaps it is time for you to read a book or to take a class in order to gain more understanding of your inquiry. Or you may need to ask a question of others who know, quotation marks, and can help you. Ask the serpent and you will be guided to the right answer easily and effortlessly. The serpent hurdles success if you follow his signal. The serpent also lets you know that you may be suffering because there is aspects of yourself that are wounded and still need tending. Now is the time for this. Perhaps you need to rest, meditate, and allow the knowledge to come in consciousness. Or maybe you just need to sleep more. Another aspect of the serpent energy is that each time you experience a healing or learning a new thing, you need to shed your skin to adopt the new one. But don't worry, the serpent says that it's a necessarily beautiful thing. And that's one thing that I want to leave with, that vulnerability isn't leaving you behind. It's gaining more that you know about yourself. So with that as you become more vulnerable through these changes, through these aspects of life, through these knowings of ourselves, we don't lose ourselves. We may transform these parts of us that were holding us back or hindering us or self-sabotaging us, and they will empower us to be. And that's what vulnerability I have found through these changes, is that when I've taken a deep breath and come back and just kind of settled in myself, that the change that I was going through actually brought me forward, because I was able to sit back and observe a little bit more, which is that vulnerable piece, right? Vulnerability is observation. And that vulnerability piece that coming back is about that story about who we are and what we're doing. So remembering that we are in the midst of big change. We are going to be changing. And I know I've talked about change a lot, but we are. And so how can we negotiate it? And it's about loving ourselves and being vulnerable with ourselves, knowing that we're perfectly imperfect through this journey. And all we can really be is that, perfectly imperfect through this journey, and surrender and trust and accept that we may not know everything that's happening, but I'm sure going to use my intuition, as we all are intuitive. I'm going to use my understandings, because we're all understanding. I'm going to use my knowledge from the past so I can walk forward, because it's going to be an amazing thing that's going to happen if we believe and we trust. So I'm Natasha Venter, and if you need any assistance, right now I'm having 10% off my sessions, which is a code on my front of my website. And I would love for you to get some assistance as we're going through this. And as you go into this Thanksgiving time and Christmas time, holiday time, remembering that grief might be with you. So be a little bit vulnerable with that grief, because as we walk forward and into that understanding that life is about grief, life is about our story, life is about change, and life is about us doing this. Oh, how do I get my almanac? I'm supposed to be getting one. I'm supposed to be getting them. Thank you for saying that, Paula. I'm going to be getting the almanacs. I heard this week, and I can send one to you, or you can go to the almanac.com, the energyalmanac.com, and you can order it yourself. But I'm going to be getting some spiral ones. So I've been waiting for mine too, but she said that they'll be coming this week. So I'm hoping in the next couple days that I'll be getting mine. Okay. So blessings to you all. May the journey, I have to get going. May you feel loved, and may the miracles of change be with you, and happy, happy, happy blessings to you. And I will be on Wednesday before Thanksgiving next week, talking probably about that, about the Thanksgiving and the gratefulness. Not too sure yet. So I will be here next week, the night before Thanksgiving, to support you in your life's walk. Blessings be. Bye now.